Parashas Nasoi, Tafshin Pei. There's not much to see in the psukim. Vayikra Hashem al Moshe leimor. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe to say, Daber el Aharon, go to Aaron your brother, ve'el banav, and to his children, leimor, and tell them, Koi sevarchu. So yeah, here the first time you have Aaron and banav, and they included that you have to tell them, leimor. Obviously, the pasuk is trying to hint something. Koi sevarchu as bnei Yisrael. This is the way you're supposed to bless the bnei Yisrael. Amar lahem. On who is it coming back? Going back this. Amar lahem. He told them, Moshe Rabbeinu, already to Aaron and his children. Supposedly, Amar lahem is to say to them, to the bnei Israel. Then it should have been in plural. This is how you will say to them, not singular. Amar, it means you say, in singular tense. You should say imru lahem. Koi sevarchu, you see the sevarchu, the verb is in plural. It should have been also here in plural. So who does it refer to? Amar lahem. Yevarecha Hashem ve'yishmerecha. Wow, two powerful words, three powerful words, one after another. To get the bracha from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should safe keep you. Yoer Hashem panav eilecha v'chuneka. Obviously, we're going, one is on the outside, it seems, one is more on the inside. Yisa Hashem panav eilecha v'yasam lecha shalom. I'm never going to arrive to there, but, and the rest of it. V'samu shmi al bnei Yisrael, and you put my name on the bnei Yisrael, v'ani avarechem, and I will bless them. There is a very big problem here. All the brachas given in the Torah are all conditional. All of them. In Bechukosai teilechu, if you go according to the Torah and you mekayim the Mitzvos, v'nosati gishmechem beitam, v'haya im shamoya tishmeu el Mitzvosai, and it will be if you listen. The Torah always put a condition on the bracha to come down, which is the kiyama mitzvah. The reason being, because it's very simple, because that's the way to become a kli, to receive the oil of the bracha and to grow through it. Because if you are not a kli for the bracha, even if the oil, which is the bracha, ha bracha equals 232, equals all the names of the chachma, ab, sag, ma, ben, all the world. This is a tremendous oil. So, but if you don't have a kli in order to keep that oil, what's the point? It's going to dissipate. So it could very well be that the Torah is not conditional. The Torah is telling you that if you want to keep the bracha, you must be a kli. How you become a kli? With being mekayim the Torah and the Mitzvos. Okay? And this you can check all the brachas. There's always an im in the Torah. But Birkas Kohanim. Birkas Kohanim doesn't come with any condition attached. How is it working? Because the same logic should apply. It's the bracha. All the names of the chachma are going to come out. absagma ben. It's all the oil. And if the person is not a kli, the oil will dissipate. So what's the point of that Birkas Kohanim if you don't want the Bnei Yisrael to become a kli in order to contain the oil, in order to keep it? What is this gula in Birkas Kohanim? Because obviously, since the Torah warned about becoming a kli on the other brachas and did not warn on this one, meaning that there's a special gula in Birkas Kohanim. I almost want to say that Birkas Kohanim is probably the biggest bracha, which is the biggest bracha in the whole entire universe. There's no other bracha that can surpass what the Birkas Kohanim do, as we're going to see. Why? Because yes, it does have a special gula. Yes, he knows how to go around the bush. Yes. Then we can turn the question on the other side. Why in the brachas of the Torah it doesn't go around the bush? We'll explain how the bracha works. Once we understand the mechanics, how it works, everything becomes very clear. There's no more questions. The Tzioni brings down that it dates from Yaakov Avinu. In other words, when Yaakov blessed his children, he gave each one of them a mafteach to one shar, to one gate. All of them, he gave them one mafteach. All together, they had 12. But Levi received an extra mafteach, an extra key, for the shar 13. And in that shar 13 is Birkas Kohanim. And Birkas Kohanim is the one that pulls the bracha to the 12 other she'arim. In other words, the bracha found in the 12 she'arim that they received, the shvatim, the shiftei kah, is only a consequence of the Birkas Kohanim, which pulls all the bracha into the she'arim. Says the Marcho, Reb Chaim Vital, in Etz Hadas Toiv, and this is true. So are you going to tell me I need to have a special kohen? No. Even if the kohen is an am haaretz, I'm going to explain all this, because it's not so partial. Because how would you know how to pull the bracha? But still, the Birkas Kohanim has an effect if the kohen is an am haaretz. Menachem Ababli was one of the originals that did the Taima Mitzvos, explaining all the mitzvahs of the Torah. So he explains that in Siman Kuf Mem Vav, on that mitzvah, Koise Varchu Es Bnei Yisrael, he says that even the Malachim come down to listen to it because they are part of the bracha. And he shows it in the Lashon of the Pasuk, Koi sevarchu es. Es is always marbe, it's always to include someone else. It's the Malachim. That's a pele. We see one bracha that's only coming from a human, from a kohen, and that's going to surpass all the brachas of the Torah, as we explained before. But there is a logic in the Torah, as we explained, because the person has to turn into a kli. Why that same logic does not apply to the Birkas Kohanim? Why you don't need to become a kli in order to receive the oil of that bracha? And what that bracha does, I'm going to be able to touch a little bit to this. The Zohar HaKadosh in Parashas Nosoi asked one question that we pointed out before. It says at the end of the pasuk, "Ko yisevarchu es bnei Israel amar lahem." This is how you will bless. You will bless in plural the bnei Israel. Then he goes to a singular mode. Amar. Why does he say? Why does he go from plural to singular here? Should have said toimu lahem as he started tevachu. Yehuda says in the Zohar that these two words antagonize themselves, because when the Lashon Amira, Amar, is belechisha, quietly, meaning you, as you say, a secret. You speak to the ear, let's say, of someone. Lahem, to them, they're all exposed. So you have to say it loud, meaning that you say it begalu, you say it publicly. How can you put these two words together? Says the Zohar HaKadosh, if Bnei Israel azakayim, then when the Kohanim say the Birkas Kohanim, they have to say it with the Shema Mefoirash. They do not say Yevarechecha Hashem. They don't say the word Hashem. They say Shema Mefoirash, the Shem of Yud Beis, the name with 12 letters. Have in mind that the whole Birkas Kohanim is based, we call it Shem Chav Beis. It's the name of 22 letters. So the Shema Mefoirash that mentioned here, it's the one with 12 letters, and that's the one they used to say in the Beis Hamikdash, because in the Beis Hamikdash, no matter what, they never used to say like us, Adoi, when they read the Yud Kei Vav Kei. They used to pronounce the letters, read it as it's written. But in here, the requirement says the Zohar that you had to say not the Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Shema Mefoirash. And that's the inyan of Amar Lahem. What's the secret? The secret is when the Zoiche, so we have to find out, how does a Kohen know if Zoiche? Everybody is gathered in front of him in the Beis Hamikdash. How does he know Zoiche? But if they're not Zoiche, he says to the Shema Bashem. So we see here this bracha is not as simple as it seems. It has degrees, because obviously when you say Yivarechecha, and you say the Shema Mefoirash, the bracha in that word Yivarecha is much more powerful than if you say Yivarecha Hashem. But the Rekanati brings down in Parashas Nosoi, when the Kohanim were in the Beis Hamikdash, and they were saying the bracha with the Shema Mefoirash. And the first consequence was that on the hands of the Kohanim, it's also another side, the hands of the Kohanim. What I sent it to you probably for Shabbos. What is that Shekhinah that lies on the hands and everything, and then blesses the Bnei Israel? There's a whole side. Everything done in Birkas Kohanim, it's a huge side. But that said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't do it for us to stay on the sideline and just do things like donkeys. No. Ve'yodata asagevehu ki yoda shemi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, when a Ben Israel is in a tzara and he knows my name, asagvehu, I will say them. Why? Ki yoda shemi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu cherish the Bnei Yisrael that take the effort to know him and know his name. Yikra'eni ve'enehu. When you call me, as Hashem said, and you know how to call me because you know my name, I respond to you. Doesn't mean that he's not going to respond to someone else that also not, but the first pasuk, this is a Shir Shel Apgayim. We're talking about a distress call, 911 to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whoa, there's a lot of kitrugim. Midas Adin is here. Mashchis Afchema, they have the right, they have the kvitlich in their hand, they have the warrants. They can do what they want. No, that person calls, he's answered. So obviously HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us something here that we need to uncover, because it's part of his names. It's part of understanding how the mechanics of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu created his world, and how this bracha has such special sgula. Says the Zohar Chodosh in Parashas Truma. There were three ways the Kohanim used to know in Beis Hamikdash the status of the Bnei Israel. Over there, just to tell you the simanim, the first siman was the kruvim, if they were facing each other. Second siman was the fire coming down on the Mizbeach, if he had the shape of a lion or he had the shape of a dog. If he had the shape of the lion, sometimes the Zohar says it's Malach Uriah, sometimes it says Malach Michael. I never really went in Be'in to find out which one it is, but it is a lion. But if it's in the shape of a dog, we know who the Kelev is. The Kelev is the Sitra Achra, the Nachash, the female Nachash. As the Gemara says in Yuma, there was a hole next to the Mizbeach on the ground. That's why that fire was not coming from the top, the roof of the Mizbeach down to the Mizbeach. It was coming from the ground up, in Yom HaChafalef, in the ground up. Okay, that's for the history to know a little bit. The third one was Birkas Kohanim. That the Kohanim would know exactly the status and the level of the Bnei Israel. How? When the Kohen were raising their arms, if it was extremely hard to raise them in order to bless the Bnei Israel, they knew there was a problem. They were not Zakaim, they were not righteous. There was some problem there. However, if all of a sudden the hands were coming up, no fatigue, no nothing, that was a siman that the Bnei Israel with Zakaim, their hands recognize the Shekhinah that wants to lie on them, and are so happy that they go towards the Shekhinah and they raise them above their heads. Not like today here. Only the Kohen Gadol used to remain under his head, or under the head. Why? Because he could not go above the tzitz, which he had on the forehead. So he had to keep his hands. And today, the way we do Birkas Kohanim is the way the Kohen Gadol used to do Birkas Kohanim. I mean, you can see some guys, they're right here, which is completely wrong. To the shoulders, it has to be to the head. All the way to the head. And you would understand yourself why it has to be to the head. So the siman was if the hand will rise quickly and happily, the fingers will be full of joy because the Shechina would come down with no problem. And that's why it says, Va'ani avarechem. Va'ani, ani being the Shechina all the time. We know that. Va'ani kutsha berichu on Shechina. And he wouldn't weigh anything on the hands, in contrary. Like the one who carried the Aron HaKodesh, they didn't feel, going in the midbar with the weight on their shoulders. No, the Aaron was carrying. Aaron noises noisav. The Aaron was carrying his carriers. Here also, the Shechina was carrying the hands of the Kohen. The Zohar gives an example. When Moshe Rabbeinu had to go on the Giva, sit on a rock, and have Aaron and Hur holding his hands. Tamchu beyadav mize echad umize echad. Each one had to support one hand because they were so heavy. What happened? Says the Zohar Kodesh, Bnei Yisrael at that time, they were not Zakayim. Amalek came. Moshe Rabbeinu was on Achrayis. He's sending Yeshua with the top tzaddikim to go fight Amalek. They need help, but Bnei Yisrael are not Zakayim, and he cannot raise his hand properly. Aaron and Hur had to go force his hand. Videi Moshe keveidim. The hands of Moshe Rabbeinu were heavy, exactly like when the luchas, when the Shechina was not carrying the luchas anymore, the hands of Moshe Rabbeinu could not carry them. And this is how the luchas fell, and they cracked. In other words, it's not an image that was the Shechina come down on the hands of the Kohen. It's actual, it's factual. Even up to today, the Shechina goes down on the hands of a Kohen, and this is how the bracha comes down. So the Bnei Yisrael at the time of Moshe, it says in the pasuk, Al Briv Bnei Yisrael es Hashem. Bnei Yisrael were fighting HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem, and they were testing him. Basically, these are a lot of words to tell us one deficiency, which is at the core, at the yesod of the Bnei Israel. Emunah. Yes, we are tested in life. Yes, we seem to see with our eyes that we going into a tunnel or we are in a tunnel. We can't seem to extract ourselves from this tunnel. It's all mentally inside, because on the outside, people will tell you, you're not in a tunnel, my friend. In contrary, you're under the sun. You can see with yourself. But the person knowing is inside and being where he is, he feels he's in a tunnel. So if he's in a tunnel, how does he extract himself? Birkas Kohanim. We're going to see the power of these Birkas Kohanim that even Birkas Torah does not have. So what did Moshe Rabbeinu do when he raised his hand with tefillah? He had to accept the oinesh of the Bnei Yisrael upon himself. Then his hands decided to remain the way they're supposed to be with tefillah. I couldn't find anywhere that he was saying Birkas Kohanim. So he was probably having his hands like this around his head in the Chochmah and Bina right there. That's how Moshe Rabbeinu had him. But, well, maybe even higher, because this right away calls upon Shemaim. It's a chesam. It's an alliance that when a person raises his hand above his head like this, right away Shemaim says, "What do you want?" That's why a person should not do that during davening. The Zohar brings it down. Many of the Gdolei Rishonim bring it down. It's dangerous. Because who are you to call upon Shemaim like this? You think your tefillah is so special that you deserve already to be answered? And we see now from Moshe Rabbeinu at the end of the pasuk says the Zohar, it says V'haya kasher yari Moshe yado v'gavar Yisrael. You see that on the hands when they're raised, something is happening because the Shekhinah is on it. So whenever he raised his hand to the Shekhinah and the Shekhinah lies on his fingers, at that point Bnei Yisrael were winning. Why? Because the Shekhinah that gives the Shmira to the Bnei Yisrael, Rachel Imein, watching over her children. That's nice and great. However, this doesn't tell us, how you can. It's fine. You take a shower. You go take a shower. You wash yourself. Is the water remaining on you? No, because you're not a clean. Contrary, the water flows on you and it goes out. Same thing here. This bracha is one of the wonders why Mefaresh that goes deep, Pisoid or Pichasidus, troubles, they bang their heads, to understand how is this bracha working. We're going to see it's not that complicated. So now what was happening according to this Zohar when the Kohanim could not raise their hands? Since the bracha comes, basically the Kohen says it, but the bracha comes from the Shekhinah to the Bnei Yisrael. They were not blessed. What was happening? Instead of answering a question, you raise a bigger difficulty. And by the way, this Zohar, it's a stira to the previous one. The Zohar Chadash is Soiser, the Zohar in Parashas Nosoi. In Parashas Nosoi, we saw that despite the condition or the level of the Bnei Yisrael, they all get blessed. The Birkas Kohanim is taking effect. From this Zohar, we see it depends on the levels of the Bnei Yisrael. Do they have merits to receive the Birkas Kohanim, or don't they have merits? In Parashas Nosoi, the Zohar said, we're not even looking at the Bnei Yisrael. They could be whoever they are. The Birkas Kohanim has such a power that the bracha will come down on them. How everything, we'll see bit by bit. We're just trying to peel a little bit the onion before we get in. However, from the Zohar Chodosh, we see that it depends on the level of the Bnei Yisrael at that time. It's a Gemara in Kiddushin. The Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanon, the Shem of 12 letters, so we call the Shem Yud base, the Shem of 12 letters, they used to give it to the Tznuim, the people that knew and didn't have to brag, not the braggers. Why? Because until Shimon HaTzadik, they used to say with the Shema Meferes in the Beis HaMikdash. When they started by the Kohanim already, some turning into Babas, they were misusing the knowledge that they were given in order to sidetrack, the use of the names. In other words, they were using them for purposes that, not mentioned in the Torah or the Rebbe, didn't allow them to use it. You can only use it for Birkas Kohanim. So they were starting to use it for mundane thing. Guy comes to the Kohen, I made a big investment. I don't know if it's going to fruit or, chas v'sham, or he's in danger. Kohen said, don't worry, my son. Shem Yud based, go guarantee works. So he was interfering with the decisions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Shem Ben Yud base always overpowers everything else, interestingly. Just for you to know that there's a lot of machlokes, what is the Shem Yud base? It's not something that you see, there's 3 times Hashem. A lot of the Mekubalim say that here, where is it hinted? It's hinted in the 3 times Hashem. Yud Ke Vav Ke, Yud Ke Vav Ke, Yud Ke Vav Ke, there are 12 letters. There is the term, obviously not that simple, but this is the Shem Yud base. By mentioning 3 times the Yud Ke Vav Ke, so in other words, what they tell us is that in the time of Beis HaMikdash, when the Kohanim were reading the name of Hashem the way it's written, this gave more power to the Birkas Kohanim. Okay. However, when Bnei Yisrael were not proper, were not on the madrega required, they were not using it. Like this Rashi explained in the Gemara. If they're not using it, so what are they using? They're just saying Yevarcha Hashem ve'yishmerecha. So says the Gemara, they used to say like we say Adnos and sing. So the Tznuim were able to be miskaven, have time to be miskaven in the shame of Yud base. In other words, to give space to the Kohanim, and Rabbi Tarfon, who was a Kohen, the Gemara in Ksubas, forgot the daf. I think it's in Pei Hey. Pei Amudaf. Well, I don't remember the daf. One time married 300 women. 370 or 300? 300, I think 370. Why did he marry those women? Because it was years of famine, and since Rabbi Tarfon was a Kohen, he was able to share truma with these women so they won't die out of hunger. That's the reason that Rabbi Tarfon married those women. So Rabbi Tarfon recounts that one time he was in the Beis Hamikdash and he went to Duchen and he heard that while they were saying the name of Hashem, he was already after Shimon HaTzadik. So they were not saying anymore the Shema Mefoirash. They were saying the name of Hashem, but read according to the way it's written. He heard that the Kohen Gadol was saying the shame of Yud Beis. So while they were in the Beis Hamikdash, even though all the Kohanim were not, so we see from this Gemara again against the Zohar, when Bnei Yisrael are not proper, put it that way, still some of them, the Kohen Gadol, we say the Shem Yud Beis in order to give effect to the Birkas Kohanim. And from the Zohar it seems they can raise their hands, and it's trivial that the hands are up. If the hands are not up, there's no Birkas Kohanim. Birkas Kohanim, it's not the words of the apostle. It's a complete package, including how the Kohanim stand and what they say. Because the Shekhinah has to be on their hands. And the Shekhinah has to agree with the bracha. The Shekhinah doesn't agree with the bracha, it's bracha levatal. So we see that from this Gemara, that we have, no matter what the status of the Bnei Yisrael is, they have a bracha. Here, there is a very, very interesting hint that Rabbeinu Ephraim al Torah gives. He says, if you look at all the brachas mentioned in Bechukosai, the in Bechukosai telechu, at the brachas ha'ele v'yisigucha, till the end of the brachas, there's one letter that's missing. It's the letter Samech. Why? To point that the Birkas Kohanim is not, which has 60 letters and 15 words, 60 plus 15 equals Kohen. That only the Kohen can activate that bracha. Amar Lahem. Who's Lahem? Kohen, 75 Kohen. You have to know how to say, we're still in the Parashas here. You have to know how to say this bracha in order to activate it, because this bracha has a side. Side of 60 plus 15. 60 letters, 15. Divided in 3 psukim. And his sefer, Reb David Zakut Mimodina, his sefer is, I think it's Zecher David. Zecher David. He writes clearly that the Birkas Kohanim is effective whether the Bnei Yisrael are Zakayim or Chas v'Shalom. If they're not Zakayim, it's also the Chida on the. If I would tell you how many say the Chida adds on the Haggadah Shel Pesach is adding that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is happy. It doesn't matter the status of Bnei Israel. Why? Because it's one of the happinesses of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bless the Bnei Israel. And we had the Zohar telling, the Zohar Chadash telling us there's no... I'm going to tell you, I'm going to just take the few lines from Rabbi Avraham Abulafia, because what he's saying here is above our paycheck. So he explains, why is it called Birkas Kohanim? What was given to the Kohen as a sgula? What sgula gave Yaakov Avinu to Levi? He gave him a key to bring Midas Arachmim whenever he wanted. Wow. This is Rabbi Avraham Abulafia. Birkas Kohanim equals 747. I'm going to write it down for you, so you have it, because I don't want to go too fast on this, because we're going to start understanding a little bit better now. So we have Birkas Kohanim equals 747 equal, I don't think it had a yud when I wrote it, Midas Harachamim. In other words, what the Avraham Abulafia tells us here, even if the Midas Adin is in the world, when the Kohen is benching, is dochening, the Midas Adin runs away and Midas Arachmim takes place. This is huge, because that would the first time now we understand what is this key that Yaakov gave. You want to understand what he means when Chazal say Mafteach? Mafteach equals 528. Equals Yaakov, Moshe together. They're both holding the Tiferes. Yaakov Avinu created a path for the Birkas Kohanim, we're going to see, to go through the Tiferes to make sure this is never going to be clogged. So he gave him the Tiferes. Not only gave him through the bracha, he gave him the here it's a koilo. It's 527 if I recall. Yaakov and Moshe. But here you're gonna see in the shir I'm gonna send for Shabbos the power of what Yaakov and Moshe did in order to understand what he means. He gave to Levi the power of Yaakov and Moshe, but in essence he gave them their midah. The midah is the Tiferes. Where is we're gonna see where is the Birkas Kohanim come through? I mean, what path would it take? Through the Tiferes. A little bit of patience. I just wanted to give you these two. So now we know why the Zohar, why Reb David Zakut Mimodina, why the Chida Kodesh, they all say that it does not matter the status of the Bnei Israel, because no matter what it is, and what they're holding with the Birkas Kohanim, they're changing completely from Midas Rachmim, from Midas Adin to Midas Rachmim. To give you a simple example, someone fainted, you give him that smell, all of a sudden he regains his spirit. When a Ben Israel is down, it doesn't mean he's bad. He means he has a heavy load on the back and he breaks his back. He needs a little bit of muscles in the back to enable him to stand straight. So when the Kohen is doing Birkas Kohanim duchening, is not only changing a current status from Midas Adin to Midas Rachmim. He revived them. They have a din of mace. He revived them and he turned them into people that want to make tshuva. The Birkas Kohanim is changing all the midas of a person. Let's go into Dari HaKodesh in Pri Etz Chaim on the kavanos of the Amida, Drush Hey, very famous Dari HaKodesh, very, very famous. When we say in Chazaras Hashatz, we say the Birkas Kohanim, what happens? Says Dari HaKodesh, there are 3 heads up there that we don't know. It's called Resha de lo Isyada, the heads that we don't know. We have, it's called the Keser. The Keser is made as the head of a person. Yeah, there's 3 parts in the head of the person. There are 3 parts in the head on top. For those who know, we have Adam Kadmon, we have Atik Yomin, and we have Arichan. And from there will come the Birkas Kohanim will be Me'oire, the Yud Gimel Midas Derachmi. Draw them down to the Tiferes. Oh, Yaakov Moshe, yes, he gave them the Tiferes. Yaakov Moshe to the place in the Tiferes. Why there are 9 Midas Derachmim. 3 times in the Torah, the Midas Derachmim were mentioned. In the Egel, Moshe Rabbeinu said 13 Midas. These are the ones that are in the beard we call of Arichanpin, in the Keser. So the Keser on the beard, there's 13 Midas around the Makim, the Dikna, in the Zakan. When the Meraglim came and Bashmut Chalila Eretz Yisrael, and the Magefa came, Moshe Rabbeinu said only 9. Why? Because the Pgam was up to Kutsha Berichu. And in Kutsha Berichu, there's only 9 Midas Derachmi. David HaMelech in Tehillim, he only says 5. Why? Because he's only mentioning the ones that are in the Malchus. So these are the different Midas Derachmim in the different spheres. So here, the purpose of the Kohanim here was, so the Zohar says when they saw the hand raised by themselves, they were so happy, they were, and he was giving them such a simcha that it was very easy to be miskaven to pull the Midas Derachmim into the Tiferes. How many we have? 13 plus 9 equals 22. From there, the Birkas Kohanim is Shem Chav Beis, because every Shem is keneged one midah, keneged one ois of the Torah. There's 22 oisias in the Torah. Now the oisias of the Torah have the power, each one to appeal to a midah of the midas derach. In that case, why can the Torah achieve the same goal as the Birkas Kohanim? Meaning that even if you're not listening to the Torah, you should get the bracha. Why not? We'll see. Here, I just want to bring a proof to what Dari HaKodesh, so we can understand and move on a little bit further. No. Stop sharing. That's not the one. Share. That's the one. If you realize here, the 3 psukim start with the letter Yud. The letter Yud, I forgot to put down this one. The letter Yud, I should put space now. These are one head of the Keser, second one, third one. This is the Shalsheles, how it comes down. We take the middle letter, it's from Rosh. So you see the first word of a pasuk, it's referring to the head, mamish the keser. And you're going to bring it on the heads of the Bnei Israel. We take the last letter. This is erech, because in arich there are 221 lights coming out. Means it's just without the yud. So arich equals 231, and here you have even 231. It's the radla. So the radla, meaning
Sefer Tevis.
What did I say here?
Chafrei Shalaf is 221.
Yeah, 221. But even when you take arich, I want to say arich equals 231. Which is the Rala Oiros, which is when you take Aleph, Shemus, you make of every letter like this. Aleph base, Aleph Gimel. There's 200, but going upward, there's 231 combinations. And from these 231 combinations, the Yud being the head, you have 221 oiris coming out of this, and this is what it says at the end here. Aleph, Resh, Chaf. 231. And what you're remaining with here? Let's put it in another column. Let me see if we can see this one. No. This one. This one. We're going to have Chav base. What comes down, everything is hinted in those words. What comes down is the Yud, like Mamish Dari HaKodesh said. The Yud Gimel Midas the Rachmim plus the 9 Midas the Rachmim. There's so much Rachmim, there is more Rachmim than there was at the time of the Egel. Moshe Rabbeinu, when by the Egel he only brought down the 13 Midas derachmim. By the Meraglim, only 9. Here you have 22. we start understanding the gap there is between the Birkas Kohanim to the other brachas. We understand now what Rebbe Avraham Abulafia said, that this is the key to Midas Rachmin. Yes. There is no din that can stay in the world. No mekatre can be handling his little kvitlech that he got on Oishana Rabbah, that he has to go after that guy. There's no more claims. They run for their lives. The Midas Rachmim, the oir of 22 Midas Rachmim coming down. Why? What's so special in this bracha that so many Midas Rachmim have to happen? But if you think that's it, only these 12 Midas Rachmim, so hold back until you ask that question. Because I'm going to prove you something else here. It says here, Veishmerecha. Equals 576. Equals Malchus. Equals plus the 4 letters of the Parshut. We all know from the Daria Kodesh already, we mentioned this in many shirim, that there's no more dinim, vehu rachum yechaper, equals that too. The kapara is on the 500, the Mishnah says there, someone who was supposed to be put to death that received Malchus, he's potter from his din. Why? Because all the dinim are gematria Malchus. So once he received Malchus, all the dinim are gone. When you have the Chav base times Yud Ke Vav Ke, all the dinim are gone. That's Veyishmerecha from the dinim. Oh yeah, you were a bad guy before. But that was before the Kohen had gave his bracha. Because now that the Kohen gave you bracha, you're tzaddik. All the dinim left you. You're a different human being. That's the mafteach that Yaakov Avinu gave to Levi. That's not a pashat azach. That's huge. I'm going to add one more thing here before I'm going to go a little bit into can't remember where I wrote this. I don't remember the number. That's a reason. Well, which word in the pasuk? Well, which part in the pasuk says mamish kapara? Like the Baruch Hu is mechaper. That the Birkas Kohanim not only is shomer from the Midas Adin, but it's mevatel the Midas Adin. The Midas Adin cannot come back to the person. This is huge. Why is that? Why simple bracha that, okay, it would be better than the Birkas HaTorah. It's already fine for us. It's already a big chiddush. But here, it's not just better than Birkas HaTorah. It changes you a human being. In other words, a person who goes to a duchen the day before Yom Kippur in the morning, well, he comes to Yom Kippur, it's not the same man. He's not the same man. He's not going to have the same Yom Kippur. So why suffer through the year, the weight of the dinim when we have this? Oh, we're not good. Oh, yeah. I understand we're not good. But Hashem doesn't care. He wants to bless us. And interestingly, these days we are very stingy about the bracha. Very interestingly. Let's see what's behind this a little bit, because we see that the pasuk is saying, Koi, we know Koi is the malchus. In that year, I don't want to go into this. Koi sevarchu es bnei Yisrael. This is how you will bless the bnei Yisrael. He could have said, Daber elaon velebanav lemor. I don't know, but it seems to be quite long. Koi sevarchu es bnei Yisrael. We know already from David Zakut that es is the malachim. So all the oilamists are going to become one. Bes Hashem, we get to this on Shabbos. I'll show you how all the oilamists are being attached one to another. From the Keser all the way, the 10 spheres are all. That's why his 10 fingers are so important. That's why there's 5 gaps in between the fingers. There's what everything in here, how the Birkas Kohanim has been shown to Moshe Rabbeinu, and from Moshe to Aaron and Banav, everything has a reason. But here we can't go in every direction. So, Koi sevarchu es bnei Yisrael. What was the number here? 1,647. 1,657. That's what it equals. Equals to the Haftacha HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to the Aves. Asher nishbata leAvraham leYitzchak uLYaakov. This is the bracha and the result, the schus aves. This bracha calls upon the schus of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. First pasuk Avraham, second pasuk Yitzchak, third pasuk Yaakov. In other words, we have the image of Yud, Yud, Yud. Yes, it's true. But B'schus Avraham, we're going to move from Adam Kadmon to Atik Yomin. From Yitzchak, we're going to move from Atik Yomin to Arich Anpin. For the schus of Yaakov to his midah, we're going to move from Arich Anpin all the way down to the Tiferes. That's Koi sevarchu es bnei Yisrael. It's a chiyuv, because this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The koyach of this bracha is the koyach of Bakoil Mikoil Koil, the bracha that Avram of HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to the Avos is when you see Avram Avinu, he received Bakoil, and the Midrash say he had a daughter called Bakoil. Bakoil is Lamed, which is the 3 Yudim, the Yud Yud. Then we have the last 2 letters, Chav Beis. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him as a haftacha that the Malchus will bless the Bnei Yisrael, will agree all the time